Croatia today is an independent state that emerged in June 1991 as a result of the collapse of Yugoslavia, SFRY. After World War I and before the start of World War II, Croatia was part of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, which united the population of the Balkans. Between Croats and Serbs, the difference is almost imperceptible. Both speak in the so-called Serbo-Croatian language, but the religion of these people is different. Serbs are Orthodox Christians and Croats are Catholics. This is how the history of these peoples developed due to the fact that Croatia for many centuries was part of the Catholic Habsburg Empire. The Serbs also were under Turkish rule for many centuries, but at the same time, like the Bulgarians, they remained faithful to the Orthodox branch of Christianity. The difference in religious confession became a stumbling block between the two peoples. Catholic Croats did not want to be in the same state with the more numerous Orthodox Serbs. Therefore, separatist movement was strong in Croatia. Independent state of Croatia. The leader of one of the most organized separatist groups, which called themselves Ustasha, Ante Pavelic, during his forced immigration became friends with Italian fascists and German Nazis. Thus, he received two powerful patrons in the person of Hitler and Mussolini. As a result of the aggression of Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy against Yugoslavia, on April 6, 1941, the territory of the latter was occupied by German-Italian troops. Hitler and Mussolini allowed Pavelic to create a seemingly independent, but in fact a puppet state, the Independent State of Croatia, ISC, led by King Tomislav. However, this was a fictitious ruler. All power in Croatia was concentrated in the hands of the head of the Ustasha, Ante Pavelic. Immediately on the territory of Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, also part of the ISC and in fact Pavelic's state, severe repression was unleashed against Serbs, Jews, Gypsies, Communists and Muslims. Serbs were forced to convert to the Catholic faith, but the Serbs did not want to become Catholic. Then they were killed. On this occasion, Pavelic stated, "We will destroy one part of the Serbs, evict the other, and convert the rest to the Catholic faith and turn them into Croats. Thus, their traces will soon be lost. For Serbs, Gypsies and Jews, we have 3 million bullets." And these were not just words. In May 1941, the Croatian Ustasha created the Jasenovac concentration camp, named after a small town 100 kilometers from the Croatian capital Zagreb, Jasenovac. Since the population of the town was mainly Serbian, it was partially killed, partially expelled, and the city turned into the headquarters of punitive units called upon to guard the camp and fight the partisans. Jasenovac was not one specific camp. This was a whole system of camps that occupied an area of about 240 square kilometers under unified management. In terms of its scale and capacity, it ranked third in a series of concentration camps created by the Nazis throughout Europe. The camps were run by the Ustasha Surveillance Service, the Croatian analogy to the SS. The first batch of prisoners consisted of 4,000 people, but that was only the beginning. Subsequently, the flow of prisoners practically did not stop even for a day. There were barracks for Jews, Gypsies, Communists and partisans, and also barracks for women and children. Several thousand Soviet prisoners of war passed through the concentration camp. However, the main victims of Jasenovac were the Serbs. Even children from 3-4 years old were kept in the concentration camp. The cruelty of the executioners was boundless. For example, the Ustasha guards forced Serbian or Jewish prisoners with higher or at least secondary education to teach their children. They organized something like a school. They taught reading, writing, music and singing. Reporters were brought, mainly from Germany and Italy, and all this was photographed. And then they sent the teachers along with their students to death. Until 1942, prisoners were burned in the territory of the brick factory. In January 1942, cremation ovens began to be installed in the concentration camp as in German camps. The cruelty of Croatian jailers is shocking. They organized competitions to kill prisoners, which of them would take the lives of the most people at a certain time. Once the winner in such competition was the sadistic warden Petar Brecica, who killed more than 1,000 Serbs in one day, or rather night. The guards of the camp with their habits suppressed all the Nazi sadists. They collected ears, noses, and fingers cut off from prisoners, made them into something like beads, and some crazy Nazis wore such beads on their chests. Italian journalist Alfio Russo honestly wrote in his diary, "Every day new people arrive, newly numbered, and every day others leave the camp, dying of suffering and exhaustion." Croatian Nazis from the so-called supervision services beat and killed prisoners every day with a variety of objects and tools seemingly intended for something completely different. They used axes, shovels, hammers, sledgehammers, saws, hacksaws, sticks, kitchen knives, and much more. A special knife was even invented, the Serbosek, Serb cutter. Brother Satan. Talking about Jasenovac, one cannot help but recall the dubious role of the Catholic Church, which took an ambiguous position on its unconditional support of the Pavelic regime. The Archbishop of Zagreb, Alois Stepinac, approved the adopted law on religious conversion, designed to force Serbs to convert to Catholicism. Stepinac did not condemn in any way those Catholic priests who took part in the execution of Serbs. For example, the Catholic priest Miroslav Filipovic, nicknamed Brother Satan, according to eyewitnesses himself took part in the murders of Serbs, including children. And he was not the only minister of the Catholic Church. Some Croatian Catholic chaplains after the war were put on trial. Several of them, including Filipovic, were executed. Archbishop Stepinac received 16 years in prison. However, 5 years later he was released. By the way, after his death, he was beatified. System. The head of the camp system was Vyacheslav Luborik Max. The Croatian Nazis knew neither rest nor fatigue in their execution frenzy. Here are the memoirs of one of the guards, Zelej Friganovic, who, in a state of drunken frankness, shared with the camp prisoner Dr. Nedo Zek. He told how they killed Serbs all night, and about his murder of an elderly peasant named Vukashin. Here is what the drunken executioner told the doctor prisoner. And we, Petra Brzica, Zurinisic, Shipka and I, argued who would kill the most Serbs during the night. The massacre began, and within an hour I was noticeably ahead of the others in terms of the number of dead. That night I was on the rise. It seemed to me that I was lifting off the ground. I was in ninth heaven. I had never experienced greater bliss in my life. And then, in a moment of ecstasy, my gaze fell on an elderly peasant. He stood in some inexplicable calm and watched as I killed victims after victims and as they died in agony. Then I approached this peasant and I found that his name was Vukashin. I incapacitated him, set him on a stump and ordered him to shout, "Long life Pavelic," threatening to cut off his ear. He was silent. I cut off his ear. He didn't say a word. I again ordered to shout, "Long life Pavelic." He was silent. I cut off his other ear. "Shout or you'll lose your nose," I yelled at him. The old man was silent. Then I cut off his nose. And again he didn't make a sound. I promised him to cut out his heart. Then, with his face covered in blood, he whispered quietly, "Child, do your job." These words drove me completely crazy. I pounced on him, gouged out his eyes, cut out his heart, cut his throat from ear to ear and threw him into a pit. And then it was as if something snapped in me. I couldn't kill anymore. Petro Brzica won the bet. He killed more than 1,000 prisoners. I silently paid him for losing the bet. Since then, I've had no peace. When I kill, I no longer experience the same bliss. And when I remember Vukashin, I hear his voice again. "Child, do your job." I throw away the knife and wander around at night, not finding a place for myself. And only vodka gives temporary oblivion. It's scary to listen to the executioner's revelations. But it happened. Croatian guards committed mass murders of everyone indiscriminately. They even played football with the severed heads of prisoners. According to the recollections of Italian journalists, in the office of dictator Pavelic, on one of the tables, there was a basket filled, in his own words, with the eyes of Serbs. He did not hesitate to demonstrate this monstrous object to his guests. The population of the ICS numbered 6.5 million people, of which more than 2 million were Serbs. 90,000 Jews and about the same number of gypsies. Jasenovac became the main, although not the only platform for the physical extermination of Serbs and at the same time Jews, gypsies and communists. Muslims also suffered. The Ustasha boasted that they killed 1 million Serbs. The exact number of their victims is difficult to calculate. In Jasenovac, according to various sources, from 400 to 700,000 Serbs, about 5,000 Roma, and 23,000 Jews were killed. Several hundred clergy of the Serbian Orthodox Church were also killed. In 1945, the Ustasha, in order to hide the traces of their crimes, dug up graves, burned the corpses, and took the remains of an unknown destination. According to some reports, the burned bones were thrown into the Sava River. After the liberation of Yugoslavia, Ante Pavelic managed to escape to Italy, where he was issued a passport with which he immigrated to Argentina. But the Yugoslav veterans nevertheless tracked down the main Croatian executioner. However, the assassination attempt was not successful. Pavelic survived, but not for long. As a result of his injuries, he developed diabetes. In 1959, he died in Spain. Nowadays, in Jasenovac, there is a memorial museum dedicated to the victims of Croatian Nazism. On the territory of Donja Gordina, there is a so-called Poplar of Terror. On this tree, the Ustasha hanged several thousand prisoners, men, women, and children. The total area of the field occupied by graves is 66,460 square meters. The area of mass graves is 10,130 square meters. And this is only a part of the established burials.